It's February 8th, 2026, and the day that seemed like it would never arrive is finally here. It's opening day for Line 5, the Eglinton Crosstown LRT. This thing has taken about as long as the English Channel Tunnel and the Roman Colosseum combined. It was originally supposed to open in 2020, and for almost the last 3.5 years, it hasn't even had an official opening date, because after announcing and having to postpone a number of opening dates, they got gun shy and stopped even pretending to announce an opening date until just 5 days ago. I've done some videos on this line previously, including one last July, which I released on the day that the delays alone on this line equaled the entire time it took to build and open Toronto's first subway line. There's a magic link up here, and I'll put a link down in the description so you can find it when you finish watching this video. All right, enough talking about the delays for now. Let's get on board a train and go for a ride.
The vehicles are Bombardier's Flexity Freedom model, which is related but not identical to the Flexity Outlook used by Toronto's streetcar network. I did a video about differences between streetcars and LRTs, including differences between these two models, links in the usual places. There are some easily visible differences inside the vehicles. One is that these have doors on both sides. Some of the platforms are on the outside of the tracks and some are on the inside. And also, just like subway trains, these can pull into either side of the terminal stations, so the vehicles need both sets of doors. And unlike the streetcars, there are no fare payment machines on these. You pay your fare when you enter the stop or the station. Speaking of stops and stations, there's a difference in terminology. Let's talk about that and visit some of each.
This is the Winford Drive stop. Stops are basically just open platforms, as opposed to stations which are enclosed. This stop is pretty typical for this line. It's in the middle of the street with the tracks running in the center and platforms on either side of the tracks. Although it's different from most of them because Winford Drive doesn't actually intersect with Eglinton. It crosses below Eglinton a little bit east of here. So there's no intersection here, and there's a crosswalk at the end of the platform, which provides access to the stop as well as allowing people to cross the street. Let's move along and look at another stop, which is also different, but in another way. And this is the Sloane stop. Like most of the stops on this line, it's at an intersection. So the crosswalk for the intersection also provides access to the stop. One thing that's different about this is that it's a center platform with the tracks on either side of it. This is the only above ground stop on this line that uses a center platform. The other center platforms are all in the stations. Now let's continue on to the east and look at a third different type of stop. And this is the Golden Mile stop at Warden Avenue. Unlike the other two we visited, this is what's called a far side stop. The stop in each direction is at the far side of the intersection in the direction of travel. So the eastbound stop is on the east side of the intersection and the westbound stop is on the west side of the intersection. It's not the only one like this on this line, but most of the stops on this line are parallel stops, like the one that we saw at Winford. All right, now that we've seen the different types of stops, let's go and have a look at some of the stations.
This is Kennedy Station, the eastern terminus of the line and one of its 3 connections to the subway system and 2, eventually to be 3, connections to GO trains. There had been plans to extend the LRT east of here, but that's no longer possible because of the Scarborough subway extension. The LRT tunnel would have to pass too close above the subway tunnel, which wasn't designed to be able to support the weight of the LRT tunnel on top of it. Thanks, Metrolinx. So the current plan for an LRT running east from here is a separate line.
Arriving at Don Valley Station. Doors will open on the left. Les portes vont s'ouvrir sur la gauche.
And this is Don Valley Station at Don Mills Road. This was supposed to have been called Science Center Station, but then some politician decided to close the Science Center, and that meant the name didn't make sense anymore. Not that the new name really makes sense either. It's not in the Don Valley. It's on high ground, close to the midpoint between the two valleys of the east and west branches of the Don River. In fact, the elevation here is about the highest anywhere along Eglinton between the two valleys. And it's not even the closest to the Don Valley Parkway. The Winford and Aga Khan stops are both closer. This nice glass structure has a similar design to other stations on this line, and like them, it had the station's name shown on the glass, like this. But when it was renamed, they didn't bother putting the new name on the glass, they just stuck an ugly black rectangle there with the new name. As for the station itself, it's unique in a way. This is the only underground station that's between two surface sections. East of here, the line runs on the surface all the way to the portal at Kennedy Station. West of here, it emerges on the surface for the Sunnybrook Park stop at Leslie and then goes underground until the approach to its western terminus at Mount Dennis. Let's keep heading west.
Arriving at Laird. Laird Station. Doors will open on the left. Les portes vont s'ouvrir sur la gauche.
Most of the stations were constructed using the cut and cover method. Cut a big hole down from the surface, build a station in it, and cover it up. But this station used a method called mining. Equipment was lowered into the access shafts where the station's entrances are located, and it dug horizontally to excavate the station. You can see that the shape is different from the usual rectangular box. The advantage of doing it this way is less disruption to the road above, and considering how bad the disruption was, imagine it being even worse if they hadn't mined some of the stations. So, why weren't all the stations built this way? It can only be done where the geology permits, and also only where it's feasible to relocate all the utilities out of the way before mining begins. The Keelsdale station was also supposed to have been mined, but it was built using cut and cover instead. And from comments that the builders made about utilities during a press tour in 2018, I suspect they discovered that the location of the utilities made them change their minds about how to build it. Another of the mined stations is Avenue, which is the deepest station on the line at over 30 meters below the surface. Mount Pleasant Station doesn't have the usual glass box of most stations on the line. In fact, that station building across the street is a former branch of the Imperial Bank dating back to 1928. It had to be removed from the site to build the station under it, so they disassembled its exterior piece by piece, marking each piece as they went so that it could be reassembled again. Pretty neat. And this is Eglinton Station, a major source of delays in this project. Eglinton was the northern terminus of Toronto's original subway line, which opened in 1954. The LRT line passes below the subway line, and when they dug down to start LRT construction, they ran into some problems they had not anticipated based on the engineering diagrams from several decades ago. In fact, the problems here were so big that there was a proposal to open just the western section of the line first, and then open from here east once this station was ready, rather than having this station hold up the whole line. But it turned out there were lots of other problems that would delay the whole line anyway. As part of this project, they decided to move the subway platforms about 24 meters north because the LRT is at the north end of the station, and that would make it easier for passengers to connect between the two. They had originally planned to move it almost 3 times as far, but that would have required eliminating the subway's pocket track north of the station, which allows trains to be stored or short-turned. You can see where the new section was built at the north end because of the difference in the tiles. I talked about the original tiles and color patterns on the subway system, including why Eglinton is now unique, in an earlier video. You know where to find the links. The platform location shifted in May 2023. The southern end of the platform needed to remain for access to the elevator and the stairs to the bus bays, so they installed these ugly partitions to block off the tracks, with the side effect of making the passageways very narrow.
Arriving at Cedarvale. Cedarvale Station. Change here for line 1, Young University. Correspondance pour la ligne 1, Young University. Doors will open on the left. Les portes vont s'ouvrir sur la gauche.
And now we're arriving at the station that ended up causing the renaming of an existing subway station, Cedarvale, formerly Eglinton West. Metrolinx, the provincial government agency responsible for this project, has a standard way of naming stops and stations, and they don't like the same street name appearing in more than one place anywhere in a system. That's why none of the stops or stations on this line have the name of the major street they're at if that street has a subway station named after it elsewhere. So, for instance, the station at Don Mills Road couldn't be named Don Mills because there's already a Don Mills subway station on Line 4 Shepherd. Kennedy and Eglinton were okay because those were already the main stations named after those roads, but Eglinton West violated their naming rules. Metrolinx likes using names of neighborhoods or nearby landmarks, and this is in the Cedarvale neighborhood near the Cedarvale Ravine. I visited Cedarvale Ravine in my video about Toronto's Lost Rivers, yada yada yada.
Arriving at Mount Dennis Station. Change for the Kitchener Line and Union Pearson Express.
Correspondance pour la ligne Kitchener et Union Pearson Express.
This is a terminal station. This train is now out of service.
Nous sommes arrivés au terminus. Ce train est maintenant hors service.
All of the stations on this line are underground except this one, Mount Dennis. It's a station because it's enclosed, but it's at the surface. It's currently the western terminus of the line, although construction is underway to extend this line farther west. The maintenance and storage facility for this line and its vehicles is just north of the station. The Kitchener GO line runs past here, and there's a brand new GO and Up Express station that opened in November, making this the second connection between the LRT and GO. A third one is being constructed on the Barrie line at Caledonia Station. Now, let's head outside because there's something neat I want to show you.
The station and the maintenance and storage facility for this line are built on the site of Kodak's former factory complex, which is why there's a road here called Photography Drive. The factory complex closed in 2006, and only one building was preserved. This building behind me, Building 9, which was built in 1939 as a recreation facility for Kodak employees. It was in the way of construction, so in 2006 it was moved about 60 meters north so they could build underneath it and put a new foundation in place for it, and then a little over a year later it was moved to its current location. So, how has the line been on its opening day? Well, if you watched my video on the opening day of Line 6, you know where to find that. Or if you paid any attention to the news, you probably know Line 6 did not go well. Line 5, as far as I can see, is going much better than Line 6 did. There are a few little issues. There are some glitches in the audio on the cars. There are some glitches on the next vehicle signs. There's been some gapping and bunching, including some waits substantially longer than they're supposed to be, but not to the extent of Line 6. But I would say all in all, it's gone pretty well for its opening day. Over the next few months, they're planning on making further improvements, including implementing better transit signal priority at the intersections on the surface portion and increasing the speeds of the vehicles in the underground parts of the line. So I'd say it's been a pretty successful first day, and it should get better from here. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you know what to do. Please like and subscribe.